Alright, I'm going to show you how to make a chat application and deploy it to the website for free. Alright, so first thing you need to do, you're going to want to go to Google, search Heroku. You're going to click this link right here. It's going to bring you to a sign up page. You got to sign up for this or you won't be able to do this for free. So sign up, put your info in. Company name could be anything or nothing. Language is going to be Node.js. Okay, I'm going to click create account, and you're going to need to confirm your account through your email, you know, the normal stuff. And once you've done that, if you've done it right, you should see this screen here if you're logged in. Okay, you don't need to click create new app or anything. As long as you see this screen, you should be good to go. So here, back on the Google search, you're going to search Heroku CLI. You're going to click that link, and you are going to install the CLI right here. We're using Windows, and we're going to be using VS Code. So install the Heroku CLI right there. Okay, and once that is all done, we can get started on the project. So we can close this, and we're going to create a new folder. We're just going to call it chat. Okay, and we'll go into our VS Code here, open folder, and we are going to go to the desktop, open that chat folder. Now we have an empty folder here. I'll make this a little bigger. We're going to go to terminal, new terminal. To make sure Heroku CLI is working, we're just going to type Heroku, and if you get this, then it's working. Okay, if it, you know, it's kind of like a help menu here. That way we know Heroku's working. We're good to go there. So you've signed up for Heroku and you have Heroku CLI working. Alright, so in the terminal, we are in our chat folder. I'm using a bash terminal, so we're going to say touch. We're going to create a few files here. An index.html, style.css, server.js, and I believe that is all we're going to need for this. Okay, first thing, close this terminal. We will just use the exclamation point to fill in some boilerplate. We'll title it chatty. Okay, perfect. We're gonna do, we're just gonna create the UI for this. So let's just do, we need a div, and we're gonna give it an ID of message container. Okay. We're gonna do another div with a class of input div. We need an input, so we're going to do input type text ID. We will say it's going to be our name field, so name input. A good practice that I've found is if you're using IDs, use an underscore. If you're using classes, use a dash. It's kind of a good way to separate the two. So we're going to give it an ID of name input. We're going to have a placeholder of name. That way we don't need a label. Next, another input. And this is going to be our message input. So we'll just give it an ID of message input. Placeholder message. Okay. Last thing we need is a button. Just something that we can click on. We're going to give it an ID of send button. We're just going to say send. That should be it for our HTML page. It's just going to be a simple page. You can go crazy with this all you want afterwards once you understand the basics of it all. And make sure, for now anyway, we just want live server installed. Make it easy for us to do the styling at first. We're not going to be using it in the end, but for now it'll make life a little easier. So if you have live server installed, you're just going to right click, open with live server, and there we have it. That's our page right there. In the head of the HTML, we're going to link our CSS file. Okay. We're just going to do some quick CSS here just to style this up a little bit. Go through this kind of quick. Width, 100 view width. We want margin 0. Okay. We want to style our message container. We need to give it a height and width. So actually, first we'll just give it some margin so it's not right at the top of the page. Center it. Give it a bottom margin. Beautiful. We want a width of 90%. Height, we'll do 400 pixels. We'll give it a border just so we can see it for now. Solid black. And just a little radius. Make it look a little bit better. Okay. In this message container, we're going to be creating elements through JavaScript that are going to be divs that are going to add to this container. So for right now, we're going to do this. And this is a pretty neat feature here. Basically, every odd div, it's going to give it a background color of this. Okay? And for every even div, we're going to do the same thing. Even background color. And we'll just do a little bit different. That way each message shows up with a different background color. It kind of breaks up the messages a little bit. And that particular div we're going to be calling message div. We're going to give it the ID later on through JavaScript. So we're going to do margin 5 pixels. That way there's a little gap between them and they're going to be centered. We're going to give them a width of 90% and text align center. Font weight bold. Border is going to be transparent. That way we can give it a radius without a border, just a little curved edges. That's it for the message div. Let's go ahead and save this. Alright. The input div. Oh, and that is a class. Input div. We're just going to give it a margin auto and a width of 90% to match our message div. Okay. And we're just going to style our input and our button, and that'll be it. So we're going to do input, width 75%. Make our inputs nice and wide. We're going to give them some margin. top bottom 0, just so the inputs have a little separation. They're not stacked right on top. We're gonna define their borders a little bit better. Give them a little curve. And font weight, make it look just a little nicer. And some padding. 5 pixels. Oh, that looks a little bit better, huh? Yep. And pretty much, oh no, not pretty much. Okay, so just the button. We're going to give it a little padding. I like to do 2 pixels, 7 pixels. Just makes it just a touch bigger. We're going to also do the border for this. 2 pixels, solid black. Same radius. And just a little bit darker background. Okay. Oh, font weight, bold, and we'll just say cursor pointer. Okay, so that's it for our styling here. Let's make this a little smaller, and this will be nice and responsive. So you can go all the way down to like 320 pixels, I think, before it breaks. So it'll work on cell phones just fine. Okay, and we got our little pointer, divs, everything good to go. You can go crazy with this all you want, but that is it for now. Okay. Alright, so that's it for the styling. Okay, the next thing we should do, we're going to use some, we're going to use a node. So let's install some some stuff here. So the first thing you should do is npm init-y. That's just going to get our package file ready. Okay. And the next thing we want is express to create our server. And we want Nodemon, but we want it as a dev dependency, so we'll do that. npm i-g Nodemon. Yep, that should be good. One more thing. We need socket.io. And that should be it for the packages. So we'll just make sure everything looks good. Yep, socket.io is dependencies, express, socket.io, dev, Nodemon. So right here at this script tag, we're just going to create a script for our Nodemon to run. Nodemon server.js. Save that. And Nodemon is just going to restart our server for us anytime there's changes to the JavaScript file, just so we don't have to restart it ourselves every single time. Alright, so we have socket.io, express, and Nodemon. Good to go. First thing here, we're going to say express equals require express, right? Const app equals express. Okay, and we're gonna declare a port variable, and we're gonna say process.env.port or 5000. What this is going to do is when you push this to production, it's not going to use port 5000. It's going to use the port that's established in Heroku. Okay, and then we just need a server variable, and this is going to be require HTTP and create server app. Okay, one more variable here, and we're going to require in socket.io, and we're going to pass some things here, server, and we're just going to do this to get around any CORS errors we might get. Might not have to do that, but just in case, so we don't have any issues with the CORS policy. Okay, so to use our Node server with HTML, we need to say app.use express, or excuse me, our express server, I guess. Express.static directory name, and then we need to get this file here. So we're going to say request response and res.send file, directory name plus index.html. Okay, and we need server.listen port. We're using server.listen instead of app.listen because we need the server to be the one that we're going to communicate back and forth with socket.io, not app. So anyway, okay, so your standard stuff here, we're just going to say console.log server started on port, and we're passing in our port variable, and this should work. So if we go down here in our terminal and we type npm run dev, because remember we want to run our dev server, which is Nodemon. Now our dev server is started, so if we go to localhost 5000, we should have the exact same thing. So we can close our live server. We're on localhost 5000, and again we're going to open it in two windows here. That way we can see the communication when we get there. The next thing we need to do is we need to bring in socket.io's client-side CDN. So we're going to put socket.io CDN, Google search, click right here, go down to this script tag, you're going to copy that, and we're just going to paste that script tag in here in the index head. Okay, easy enough. Now in the HTML's body, we're going to write some script. We need to pull in some of our IDs. So what we're going to do is pull in our IDs, and we're just going to create some variables. Message container. So our first document.getElementById. Message container. Okay. Let me make this just a touch wider here. Okay, good. Name input. Same thing. Get element by ID. Name input. Okay. Message input. Oh, nope. Document.get element by ID. Message input. Okay. And last one here, send button. Document.get element by ID. Send button. Easy enough. So next we're going to declare our socket variable. This is going to allow us to connect to socket.io, and we're going to pass in our local host 5000 because that's where we're at. We're running on port 5000 on the local host, so that's what we want socket to equal here. Okay, and now we're just going to say socket.on connect. This is an event listener that socket.io has built in, and we're just going to console log just to make sure it works. It works. So I don't know if this is actually going to work yet or not. Let's refresh this and see. Yep, there we go. Perfect. It's working. Okay. So socket.io has been imported to this HTML. We are calling the event listener. We're listening for the connect event. So that's when somebody enters the page, and it's just logging that it's working. Okay. Very good. Okay. Now we need to create a function to display our messages here. This is just a standard JavaScript function. It's taken in a message variable, and we're going to declare a div, and we're going to create element div. So this div, it's going to create a div when we call div. So, and we're going to want the ID to equal the ID that we used in our style sheet. That way it has the styling applied to it. And we want the inner HTML to equal message. And now we want to append this to the message container. Easy peasy. Okay, so just to see this working, we can say display message, and we can just put in a message here. Now if we refresh this, we get our message. And if we just copy this a few times, you'll see our divs change colors based on if they're odd or even. That's in our style CSS. You know, background color odd, background color even. Okay. So we know our display message function works, and this will be our main function that we use to communicate back and forth to the server through the sockets. So first thing we need to do on this end is add an event listener to our send button. We're going to listen for the click event, and we're just going to run a function when that event occurs, and we're going to declare message, and we're just going to make a few rules here. If name input value is empty, then we want message to equal message input dot value. So if the name input is empty, we only want to display the message, okay? Else, if name input is not empty, we want message to equal, and we're going to put some backticks here. We want it to equal name input dot value, and then we want like a colon, you know, so it's going to have the person's name and then whatever their message is that they are, you know, sending you. So message input dot value, so that's a first rule there. We want another rule if message equals, or I'm sorry, message input dot value is blank, then we just want to return. Okay? That way, if there's no message, then nothing gets sent, nothing happens. Alright? Alright. And also when we hit send, we want to display the message on our end as well, but we want it to say it's us and not our name. So basically we can just call our function and pass in our own unique message here that just says you and the message input value. Okay? So now if we refresh, we should be able to display a message here, and we'll just say John. This is just going to display on our end. Because we're running the function on the click event, none of this doesn't really matter yet. The only thing that matters is that we're running this function. Okay. I think unless of course we didn't put a message, then it's not going to do anything. But if we put anything here, it's going to do something, because we have this rule to return if the message input is empty. You get the point. Okay, so in order to send this information to the server, we need to just say socket dot emit, and we're going to create our own event listener name. So, and we want to send the message. Okay? And message is going to end up equaling one of these two things. So we're creating an event of send message, and we're sending that event to the server. Okay? And after that happens, we want the message input value to equal blank again. That way when we hit send, it automatically let me refresh this. It automatically clears out the message field, so you don't have to delete it every time. Alright, so that is good. So now that we've created our send message event on our server, we need to listen for that event. So the first thing we need to do is say this is an event listener for the server side. Okay? We're listening for the connection event to the server. We're going to pass in the socket variable, and for now I guess we'll just say console.log socket.id, and this should This down here in the terminal is our console on the server. It's not on the client side. This is not the console in the client side. We still just have our it works. This is the console on the server side. Okay, and it's just logging the unique ID that's created by Socket.io anytime somebody joins the chat room or the website. It gives them a unique ID every single time that this is refreshed or somebody joins. There's a unique ID. Okay? Alright, so now that we've listened for the connection event, we can listen. We're going to tell Socket to listen for the send message event. Okay? And we're going to run a function that takes in the message. So when I click send, it's creating the event on the client side, the send message event. The server is listening, waiting for that send message event. Okay? Once it gets it, it says, okay, now I'm going to run my function. Alright, so the function is just going to be socket.broadcast emit, and we're going to emit an event back to the client side. Okay, so we've created another event, another custom event that we name receive message. And I didn't spell receive right. Be careful with this word. It can really mess you up. So if you're getting any errors, just make sure we're spelling receive right on both sides. Doesn't matter how you spell it. It just matters that you spell it correctly every time you use it. Okay, so broadcast emit receive message. We're emitting an event called receive message. We're sending the message through the event. Okay, so we'll save that. Now back on our client side, we want to receive that, we want to listen for that event. So we're gonna be listening for receive message. Okay. And what we need to do, once we receive this message, we run a function that takes in the message, and we just want to run our function and display that message. Alright, now that we have all that, now I should be able to put a name in here. And actually, let me refresh that one. Okay, and if I send that, you say hello there. The other person sees John says hello there. And if this person wanted to message me back, they would say hello. And on their end, it would say you say hello. On my end, Jane says hello. And that's it. And you can do all kinds of stuff here. If you're familiar with JavaScript and HTML and CSS, you can make this whatever you want. And what's kind of cool about this message input here is because we're setting the inner HTML, you can use HTML tags in here with inline styles if you really wanted to. So if I just close that off, and you could say style equals, let's just say color red, and if I were to send this, it would be just like I wrote it in HTML. If you look on their side, So John doesn't say that because I didn't do that for their name. Okay, so you could use HTML in the message. You can go crazy with that all you want. And if you wanted to dress up these messages a little more, you could add that. Where should we add it? Right here, where message equals message input dot value. So I'll just change the else statement, and you can put some little diamond tags here, or you can put HTML, what do they call that, like emoji tags, hex numbers. Let's try HTML emoji codes. So yeah, like these hex numbers here, you could put that in here and have a nice little, whatever you want here. So anyway, that's for a whole nother video. But now, since we put those little greater than, less thans in there, you'll see that it shows up on their end with those little symbols. Okay? And you could do the same thing in display, when it's displaying to you. We'll just do that. And you see it's got the little diamonds in there or whatever. Alright, so that is it for the application. I mean, and you can take this as far as you want. There's more to it. You can add rooms. There's more stuff you can do, but this is basically it. And you can chat back and forth with somebody on this all you want. Alright, so to get this to an actual website, it's not too difficult. So as long as you have Heroku installed, make sure you type Heroku in, the CLI is installed, and it works properly. Let's see. Let me just, and I will just minimize that. Okay. So you've signed up for Heroku, you have the CLI. First thing we're going to do is type Heroku login. Okay. And once you do that, you should get this. Press any key to open. It's going to open the browser. It's going to ask you to log in. And if you get this, that you're logged in, you can just close this out, and that's all you got to do. Okay? So you're logged in. And so one thing we need to create a file in the main folder called get ignore. Okay? In this get ignore file, we need to put / node modules. Save that. Okay? This is going to ignore the node modules when we push this to Git. Alright? So the next thing we are going to do is get init. We're going to initialize our Git. Okay? So after that, we're going to say Heroku create, and this you're going to need to give it an app name, but the app names can be taken, so you need to come up with something that won't be taken. So I'll call this Chatty McChatter. Okay, so we'll create this application. Chatty McChatter is already taken. That's pretty funny. Okay, Chatty McChatty face. Let's see if that's taken. Okay, so we're good there. That's not taken. Alright, so once you create this application and they give you this URL right here, we're going to take this URL and we're going to copy it, we're going to put it right here where we declared this local host in the HTML. Okay, so we're going to delete that and we're going to put that URL in there, because if we leave localhost, it's not going to work. So chattyface.herokuapp.com, okay, or whatever you named it. Alright, pretty straightforward. Now we got our ignore file, so we are going to add our files for commit. So we added our files. Now we commit our files. We just say commit, and if you followed it up to this point and everything is successful, then this should be the last step here. We're just going to say git push Heroku master, and if everything works correctly, it should build your website for you and it should work. So let's give it a second. And there's the site right there. So to open this from the command line, we can just say Heroku open, and it should open. And there it is. This is on the web right now. So just to show that it works, I'll open another page. So if you go to this URL, or whatever URL it gave you, it'll work. So if my name was Fred, and there you go. You can see it works. Okay? And that's it. You know, and if you decided, you know, you didn't want this, you can go to Heroku, and now let's go back to Heroku here. You'll notice that this is going to look different, and it's going to have your app here. And this is a free service, but I believe it does have traffic limitations. So you can't have like 1,000 people going to this site doing requests, you know, or it's going to lock you out or whatever. You got to pay for it if you really want to make this big, or if you wanted to give this your own name, I believe you got to pay for it to change it to an easier, you know, URL. There's a lot of stuff to this site, but so that's it. It pushes the app to your page. You click on the app, and if for some reason you wanted to delete the app, you go to settings, all the way down at the bottom, delete app. You can mess around in here, check out everything they got to offer. It's a really cool thing because you can get a website for free, which is pretty neat, and I'm pretty sure this would work with other sites that you create. I'm not exactly sure if you gotta run, you know, you might have to be running a Node process for this to work, but overall pretty cool stuff. Hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you next time.